Good morning. Nice of you guys to drop by.
What a piece of junk. What are you talking about?
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
Look, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine. Trust me.
I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. Don't get technical with me.
This bickering is pointless.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
I'm glad you're here to tell us these things.
How could you even say that?
I got a bad feeling about this.
Well, come on. Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Would you get going, you pirate?
Get in there, you big furry-o! I don't care what you smell!
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
I like the sound of that.
Get a shuttle ready.
I don't know. Fly casual.
Shuttle Tydirium, what is your cargo and destination?
Transmission commencing.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for tuning into the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast. This is Jim Chadwick, your pilot, almost known as Hey Chadwick on the FFG forums and a host of other places. I do have sitting next to me Phil Mead, sometimes called Baba Ganoush. How you doing, Phil?
Good. How's everyone doing tonight?
We're fine.
I'm fine.
We also have J-Bot, who is our cranky protocol droid.
How you guys doing tonight? I'm actually doing pretty good. I won a game tonight, so I'm in good spirits.
He's just our protocol droid. And we also have Jake the Break. He is our chief engineer on board.
You betcha. I'm also feeling good. I talked to a Imperial engineer recently, and I got some new stabilizers for the Shuttle Tydirium, so it should be running smoothly again. I'm excited about that.
Most excellent. You know, you were gone for many episodes, and your presence was missed, so I'll just say that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Captain.
All right. So I do have a captain's question to start things off with. Not about food. So I want to know.
I guess just click off right now.
What are your what video games are catching your attention lately? It doesn't have to be your all-time favorite, blah blah blah. But what video games you playing? There've been a few new ones lately, and there's some out there. I'm just kind of curious because Jake mentioned video games last time. So let's go with J-Bot.
Oh goodness! I think I mentioned this in our pre-show warm-up that I could run my own podcast. I think just yammering on about video games. I will try to keep this short unless you guys want me to wander on. I am historically and always have been and probably always will be a Fallout person. I've played literally every Fallout game in the franchise, from the really, really crappy ones on the old PCs. I don't mean the original 1s and 2s. I mean the Brotherhood of Steel and those sorts of things all the way up through the new ones. Those are my current favorites. They've always been my favorites. They always will be. The only thing I'm kind of raging on at the moment is I have a PlayStation 4 and we don't have user mods on it, which bugs the crap out of me because I went away from PC for the ease and simplicity of a console, and I've been missing all of the really, really cool stuff in those games because of it. But currently, I actually, because of some of the issues with Fallout, and I put 400 hours into the newer one, so I was like, I probably need a break. I went to 2 or 3 other games and wandered around, but just recently picked up the No Man's Sky, which I have a suspicion that a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are at least aware of in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. It's even been interesting in the off-topic subforums. People use a thread for No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah, it is a interesting game. I've heard a lot of people say it's polarizing. They either really love it or really hate it. I picked it up knowing somebody was going to hate it, so I actually didn't buy it the first day. I went in 5 days later and got a used copy for $15 off, knowing somebody was going to hate it. And
smart.
And I was like, well, I saved $15, and the girl behind the counter was like, wow, how did you know? And I was like, come on, it's obvious somebody's going to hate this game because they just followed the hype. I will say that I don't love or hate it. It's interesting. I keep going back to play it, but it's, as I joke with Jim, it's Minecraft in space, except for it's not so much craft. It's more just mine in space. But I'm actually enjoying it. I finally figured out how to actually dogfight in space, which is fun considering how what the little game that we all kind of know and love. I figured out how to not feel like I'm trying to fight with a bus, which is what it felt like the first half a dozen times I got shot and blown up. But now I've started to kind of get my legs underneath me and wipe out 6, 7, 8 strong whatever they are, raiders or pirates.
I had a hard time with the Shuttle Tydirium and getting that in combat training, but once I added advanced sensors, I did much better.
I don't want to go too much into the detail of the game, but I basically said, you know what? To heck with all this other crap, and just loaded every single thing I can into whatever the equivalent of the phaser beams are. I don't know what they're called in the game, with the green beam, and just loaded everything into that in that game. And it's like, ooh, I got a lock on, and you're just like cutting ships in half. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to maneuver. I'll just sit here and hover in space, like a shuttle, basically, and just obliterate anything that goes across my view screen. And
that is too funny.
Yeah, that's been working.
I know my son actually was eager. He read about this game and he was eager to play it and try it out. And it's been a lot of articles and stuff written about it. It's kind of crazy in its concept, but he knew it was coming out at the beginning of the summer, and he had some money and he worked a bunch of extra chores and errands. He was scrubbing windows and doing all sorts of things around the house. We created tasks for him to kind of generate some extra money for him, and he got all the cash ready, and they delayed the game 2 months.
There were death threats over that delay, just so you know. Death threats. That's how much hype there was. I saw something the other day about this was like second or third all time for like sales in the first few weeks or first few days. It was crazy. It was some ludicrous, or no, not sales, I'm sorry, concurrent players. It was some ludicrous number that you're like, wait a minute, this is second beneath Skyrim? How in the heck did this happen, sort of thing? But I'm not sure we'll see the same numbers a month from now. Let's put it that way. It's very polarized.
Yes. There's a lot of hype and all, and I even read some reviews because I was looking at it and said, don't even trust any review that comes out until like several weeks have been played, because it'll take that long to really get into what the heck the game's about.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't know, it's a procedurally generated universe, galaxy, whatever. Planets are all algorithm math, however these guys did it, and they're humongous. I mean, I read an article, some guy spent 25 hours on the first planet he landed on or started on, and basically maxed the entire character, game, etc. out before he left the first planet. Or you could say, to heck with it, I got my ship fixed. I'm blasting off into space, and I'm naming every planet and every solar system or system,
right,
whatever the heck I want to. Just
what
stupid names.
Sort of guy shows up and says, "Go to the center of the universe. Things will happen at the center of the universe. Please do it." And he runs away, and you can either follow his direction or totally blow him off. And like that's kind of like the whole premise of the game. From there, is like from there you just kind of do whatever the hell you want, or you can actually start going. And I read about some guy who declared he's just going to do everything he can to get to the center of the universe as fast as possible. And then boom, and weeks, and he's still not there. So,
oh yeah, it's really neat. You do a lot of stuff. You can tweak things, build your ships. There is some crafting. It's not as deep as Minecraft, but there is a lot of mining involved. The crafting isn't as deep as Minecraft has. But
now I have a question for you, John. Because I have been following this game for a while, reading up on it. I don't have it because I wanted to wait just like you did. And after I saw the reviews, I got disenchanted. But one of the things I had read, and you can let me know if this is true or not, is people were disappointed because they were saying it was going to be a big multiplayer experience. But potentially you could play the entire game and never see somebody based on A, how massive it is, but also B, is it even possible to see other players, or is that something that doesn't exist?
Now there was a big
possible.
Yeah, there was a big, humongous hubbub like the first day. So essentially it's a procedurally generated, algorithm based, blah 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 math, whatever thing that they essentially the best way I could put it is roll a gigantic die, and that's what system you're going to start in, what relationship it is to the center of the galaxy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it's possible, but realistically through the numbers, they said it's realistically impossible that two people, because the game said 18 quintillion, I think, planets. It might have been systems. 18
Yes.
quintillion. That's a lot of zeros for, because I don't even know how many. That's a lot of zeros.
Right.
And then let's say it's like one of the best-selling games of all time, and you've got 100 million people playing this thing at one shot. There's still like, I don't know this, so math people yell at me later. There's still like another 20 zeros of like empty space that even if each person found like 10 or 20 or 100 systems, like you still got another, whatever it is, 15 zeros worth of empty space that people are basically never going to touch.
Interesting.
So realistically, no, you're not going to run into another person. But what happened was within the first 24 hours, so when you load in, you essentially, the game goes, bloop, here's a planet for you. Within 24 hours, somebody else loaded in on somebody else's planet. Mm-hmm. So like I start today and I'm like, where did Phil's planet? What do you mean? What is this stupid name that somebody named this planet in the system? Why are all these animals been named already? And it was somebody else had already been there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that was that person's starting point, but somebody else had already been there. So those two people were close enough that they contacted each other and tried to essentially connect, tried to find each other in the game, and they couldn't do it. There was created a huge hubbub because one of them was at nighttime, one of them was at daytime on the same planet, supposedly same planet, looking at the same figure, same creature, or whatever.
So it might have all been a lie by the company, like, oh yeah, it's multiplayer, but then when it comes right down to it, it was just math and a fabricated multiplayer experience.
But
I've been reading for a while now as well, and they've been stressing for a while that while it is multiplayer, the chances of you actually finding somebody else is pretty slim.
It is realistically,
and I get that,
slim.
But John's story is, from what I understand, true. Like the two people actually found that they were on the same planet, looking at the same tree or whatever, and they still couldn't see each other. In other words, like there were two completely separate instances.
Well, that was what people were afraid of.
I have read that at least, and my son as well, that people were trying to meet up because like somebody had traveled and seen some things already named by such and such, and they contacted that person through like the Steam contact, private message, and tried to meet up with them, but then they were like difference with time zones and such, and they weren't quite actually online at the same time.
This one, they actually had streams of, they streamed them live on YouTube, so people were watching basically both people moving through, and they're like, everything's the same except for one of them's at night and one of them's during the day, and that it raised this question of, were they basically lying that you can't, even if you tried your hardest to find each other? Because you'd think if we're all heading towards the center of the galaxy, eventually we're all basically heading towards a giant meeting point, right? So at some point in the distant future, if we're all heading towards roughly the same area, we're going to start overlapping each other a little bit.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, but somebody said, well, did they lie? Or is the guys have hinted at a lot of kind of Easter eggs in the game. And somebody said, is it possible that there's actually essentially a dimensional shift? Like there's actually multiple dimensions involved in this as well. So like, is it possible? Yes, they're on the same planet, but they're in different dimensions. Like, oh, he's I hate to go into it too deep, but basically that's one of the ideas. But if you follow some of this stuff, the guy who created it isn't exactly the most trustworthy when it comes to spouting things about the game. So like essentially a few days ago or a week ago, he said that, DLC will basically be free and blah, 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 blah. And like a couple of days ago, he's like, well, you could never expect us to make this stuff for free and not charge you for it. So he has a bit of a kind of a two-faced nature about the way he answers people.
Interesting.
I don't want any of that to affect whether or not you like the game. I am enjoying it enough to continue playing it. And I have kind of a rough rule for myself of, if I get $1 per hour out of a video game, I consider it to be worth my money. And I don't have any doubt that I'll get $1 an hour out of this. Other games, that's why I don't play first-person shooters anymore. When you can blow through a game in 4 hours, it's like, So I play a lot of big open-world games, a lot of RPGs and stuff because I get that time. And this, I don't think I'll have much of a problem with it. But if you're going in expecting a multiplayer or some great action adventure game, don't. There's That's not there. It's very much an isolationist survival sort of, oh crap, my radiation sensor's going off again. Like, oh crap, what do you mean there's a giant ice storm that's going to drop it to negative 90 degrees Celsius, and I gotta run back to my ship like 3 miles away. Oh crap, that sort of thing. So if that doesn't really get your jollies, then I'd probably steer clear of it.
Right. Got it.
All right, now we have kind of gone off for a bit, but I think it was a big one.
I knew I'd do that. Sorry.
But I will say that actually I think the creator has a running contest with himself and maybe people close to him that because the PS4 universe and the PC universe are actually separate, and who knows, maybe that was actually part of the thing that they were. Well, if they're separate, anyways, they're separate, and you can name them whatever you want. And he's kind of got which side's gonna actually name the stupidest names for things like
they have a pretty strong profanity filter,
plateaus and creatures and plants, and you can then name it, whatever you want.
They have a pretty strong profanity filter because it hit me, and I'm like, "What are they talking about?" I must be out of touch if that's a curse word. Because I was basically trying to name some random animal. I'm like, I must be really out of touch. Maybe I should Google that. And then I'm like, maybe I won't Google that because I don't know if I want to know what it is. So.
Well, not so much profanity, but just like absurd, like.
There's some absurd ones in there. I was trying to be very, very, cool about mine. So if anybody happens across my little realm, they're like, oh man, this guy's really cool. Not that anyone would ever see awesomely named stuff, but let's move on.
All right. So we've chatted for a bit. I will jump to our chief engineer, Jake.
All right. Well, kind of like what we already said, I am a big video gamer. I could do a whole podcast probably talking about it, but I'll try and keep it at an appropriate length, and I'll just mention platform? What platform. It's almost always the PC. The only time that I don't go to the PC is if I'm playing with my daughters, or my daughter, I should say, and we're doing Minecraft on like the Wii U or something like that, or Mario Kart, or one of those.
Oh, Mario Kart's still good. Yep.
Absolutely. But if I'm playing serious, if I'm playing like for keeps, there's a couple of really good games out there right now that I have been playing. One of them for the computer is called Battlefleet Gothic Armada. And if you haven't heard about this game, it's definitely worth checking out.
It's a 40K game, really?
It's a Warhammer 40,000 game, and it's based on the old Battlefleet Gothic game that was a tabletop game, which is no longer running or getting updates.
But I heard it was popular from those that actually played, or those that played the actual game did enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was fun. Nothing like firing torpedoes and then waiting 6 turns to see if they actually make contact. But it was a fun little game.
I mean, this game is a game that I even pulled Phil into. So we've actually been playing this a lot. And the company that made it is a very small company. It's called Tindalos Interactive. And you can tell they're small. Like, they're not a AAA developer. There are plenty of bugs, throughout the game. But what they've accomplished is this really beautiful game. The models and the details on each ship are stunning. You can zoom all the way in and see like these tiny little macro turrets and these giant bridges and everything. And the sound effects, the FX, everything is glorious, and it plays really fun too. And if you like space battles, and if you like X-Wing, honestly, it kind of reminds me of X-Wing in a sense. It's not turn-based, though. This is actually like a real-time strategy game, with space combat. So if you're interested in Warhammer universe, if you're interested in space battles, then this game certainly is for you. And one of the really cool things is that they didn't realize how popular the game was going to be when they started, and then after they unleashed it, they saw how many people bought it and how many people loved it. So they added more factions. They added the Space Marines, and then they said, "Oh wow, people still like it. So you know what? We're going to add the Tau." So the Tau are actually coming this month, and then next month or the month after that, they're going to add the Tyranids, and they're really going to try and get every single playable faction into the Battlefleet game, which I'm super excited about.
That's pretty cool. I don't think the Tau are ever in it in the old style.
Well, Forge World created a Tau battle fleet.
Oh, did they really?
They did.
There's a Forge World Tau fleet, and there's like a old.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Tau fleet.
There's the old style.
Lame,
yeah.
But
It was, I think, more limited, right?
I think so.
Or at least lamer looking. But
Definitely.
in any case, yeah, it's going to be the Forge World Tau Fleet, which I'm super excited about. So that's what I've been playing relatively competitively. They have a 2 versus 2 option, so Phil and I go and we just stomp noobs all day long. Haha, that's a joke. We sometimes get beaten, but in any case, so that's a really fun one. Another fun one that I have been playing, but more not so competitively, just because it's a beautifully designed game, is something called Stellaris. This is a game that I got on Steam. It's a 4X multiplayer game, and it's one that actually Phil introduced me to. And I'm not good at 4X games. I like to manage 1 or 2 or 3 ships. I'm very bad when it comes to managing an entire galaxy worth of planets and populations and ships and everything like that. But the story and the way that they did it and the events that you have to conquer are just beautiful. And you get to create your own race, which is really the best part about the game, in my opinion, is being able to create your race, whether it's a mammal, a reptile, a plant, a fungus, an arthropod. You've got all these different styles that you can pick from, and you create them to, whatever you want. So it's a really cool sandbox to create your character.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I say that I'm 45, so I started in the early days of PC gaming, and I am and also I've played board games, etc. I'm a turn-based gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely, yeah. The real-time stuff is just
when what is it, the 90s, the late 90s, when all these real-time strategy games popped up. I freaking hate them.
Yeah, I think it was the late 90s when you started seeing, or mid 90s when you started seeing Warcraft, the original Warcraft, and those sorts of things.
Like, I played Sid Meier's Civilization, and then Microsoft has to come out with their own Civilization, but it's real-time strategy, and you just get all your hunter-gatherers doing your crap, and all of a sudden you don't even notice that half your village is burning because you've been too busy micromanaging. And I'm a micromanager. I like my turn-based. I do not like real-time strategy crap. I'm
kind of on the same page with Jim with those. But as for PC gaming, I did it for so many years, and the thing that got me was it got too hard, I guess, to keep up with. Oh my God, I got to get a new video card. Oh, I got to get more XYZ and this, that, and the other to keep up with it. So I just you know what? It's another stress I can get rid of in my life, and I just went to consoles and stuff. I do miss it, and there's a lot of great games that you just never see on console. But
oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I think that's you're right. The updating of the PC, that can be definitely a pain in the butt. Every new game, every new cutting edge game requires the new cutting edge video card.
Yeah.
No. Usually every 2 years. Every 2 years, you just kind of need to upgrade or something where along that. But I was a long-term PC gamer. And I like the keyboard commands. You've got you can do so much more. Like in the PC version of one of the games I played for forever was Battlefield. Excuse me. So Battlefield 1942, the first one, I played them all. And you can lay down, you can crouch, you can do all sorts of things. But in a lot of the console versions, you can't even do that. You don't have the same range of commands, let alone the various voice activated commands to your squad and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, this, unfortunately, you probably wouldn't like Stellaris very much because it's not turn-based, although you can control the speed. Like when you're playing single player, you can go slow, you can go ultra slow
right.
to help. You can pause the game, so it's, it doesn't give you as much heart palpitations. But I definitely see where you're coming from because I sometimes do like the turn-based and not have to worry about the panic that sets in with a real-time strategy. But the final, there's just 2 other mentions I want to quickly make. I did mention the one last week, the app that I have on my phone, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It's less than a year old, but this game has consumed my life. I play it every single day. I play this more than anything else, probably because it's so easy to pick up because it's on my phone. But being able to create your own Star Wars dream team is just, for me, phenomenal. You could have any character class that you want, or any characters, villains, heroes in the same team, and just battle your other opponents. So someone might have Han Solo and Greedo, versus Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine. It's just a cool matchup, however far-fetched it might be. And then finally, the last game is Star Citizen. Have any of you heard about Star Citizen?
Oh yeah,
I have. I just don't. I've heard the name. I haven't played it. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha. It's not out yet. It's still in its development phase, but
that would be why.
Yep. But this game it's very cool. I funded it when it was back on Kickstarter, and this was years ago now, but they have this open development process. So, if you want in, you can buy like the cheapest version of the game and then just get in there and start seeing what they're doing. They're during development. So it's all like pre-alpha. But you can go in there, you can see what space stations they're making and fly their ships and everything. I've already sunk in like over $100 into this game because everything that they show is awesome. It's like real life, or not real life, I shouldn't say that. It's like Star Wars, a whole universe built, but it's authentic, it's new, and you can be in command of your own, Millennium Falcon. You could be a smuggler if you want, or you could be a bounty hunter. You could be your own Boba Fett and find the smugglers and. The whole universe seems open to you, which usually I'm not into those kinds of games, but this game has definitely caught my interest. So, all right. So I've babbled a lot about video games. I'm ready to hand the torch to someone else.
All right. So we'll go to Phil.
I also play a pretty good amount of computer games. I'd say that the two games I've been playing recently that haven't already been talked about are War Thunder. So War Thunder is a free-to-play with in-game purchases, World War II,
planes, tanks,
tanks. I think they're adding boats now.
Oh, so cool!
And it's a lot of fun. It's probably there's a few free-to-play style games like it out there. I think like
World of Tanks,
and then
World of Warships.
World of Warships, certainly. I think World of Airplanes or something like that. And War Thunder is distinct from those mainly for attention to or like valuing realism in the game.
So it's like War, but it really adds thunder.
I mean, it has three modes for planes and tanks. So it has an arcade mode where the physics are unrealistic, and you can drive a heavy tank up a hill like quickly, and you can like power slide it and stuff like that.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. It has realistic battles, which is normally where I am, which is sort of between real life physics and the arcade physics, and it's just a little easier than playing full simulator mode, which is sort of the highest level of realism that they can accomplish. So if you're flying a plane, then your view from the plane is just from inside the cockpit.
Oh, that's tough.
And there's no indicators, no graphical aids. I think you have to look at the instrument panel of the plane to see what your speed is and your altitude.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
That sounds really tough.
I mean, it's not for the
weak-hearted.
Yeah,
faint of heart. Yeah,
you have to, and taking off and landing is not easy in those modes.
I think you meant crashing and burning.
Yeah. Is it harder or easier than landing on the carrier in the old Top Gun NES game? Because I always had to have my brother come into the room and land the stupid plane for me.
I don't know. I never played it, but
you never played that? Oh, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it's like I always heard Microsoft Flight Simulator was still around because Bill Gates liked it. That's the reason it still existed for so long. But yeah, it was just one of those flight simulators where you just died on trying to even take off. That
yeah.
It's
hard enough landing a plane in realistic battles. I think I mess up 1 out of 10 of my landings, and I've been playing for a while. But I usually stick to tanks. I'm a pretty good tank driver these days.
Nice.
Well, all right, I can probably go and wrap up the Captain's question because it's been a bit. I am actually an old-time PC-type gamer. I played back on my Texas Instruments personal computer. I had a friend who had an Apple, when it first came out, Apple Junior, and I did get a PC Junior when it first came out for at home, and I played King's Quest and all those games, and the one with a little parachute and a turret. But I played at PC games for years and years and years. But I will say that recently I bought an Xbox One for the first time because I got sick of upgrading things eventually, and it was a bit tedious. But I will say even since then, a very generous friend has actually donated a lot of his old parts, and I was able to cobble together a year past state-of-the-art PC with just buying a case.
Are you talking about JBot 1.0?
No.
Oh, I've already been worked on enough.
No, so
I'm not
actually,
talking about you. I'm talking about 1.0.
So I do have actually a PC that is actually not too far off, state of the art these days. Solid state drive, a decent video card, etc., and an Xbox One. So I'm kind of caught between. I've been playing Star Wars Battlefront on Xbox and enjoying it. In fact, the guys over at the JodoCast are trying to do a Star Wars Battlefront segment where they record, 15 people or so chatting about X-Wing and Star Wars Battlefront while they play Star Wars Battlefront, and I signed up for it because I think it's pretty cool, and I'm into that. So,
Genius.
So I do like it. I played Star Wars. I played Battlefield lots of games, and when Star Wars Battlefront came out, it was a complete rip-off of Battlefield, and it sucked because whichever side had jetpacks, there's always one side, they won all the time, the end. And it sucked. So you're playing online with people, whichever side has jetpacks, they win, you lost. It was a really crappy version of Battlefront, and I always hated Star Wars Battlefield games. And I know that there are people who love it and love it and love it, and the latest version is not what it was. And I don't care because I played those, and maybe if you played against the AI or something, it was worth it. But otherwise, the game sucked. And I like the new version of Star Wars Battlefront, and people, a lot of people don't agree with me, but I don't care.
Now, you're saying that the new one, Star Wars Battlefront, for the Xbox, that's the one that you like, but you don't like the one that came out before?
Right, because 1 and 2 came out, and there's a new one just called Star Wars Battlefront because they finally gave the license to the same company that makes that makes Battlefield games.
Correct.
EA.
Okay.
Well, people can hate EA, but I like the Battlefield games. I've been very happy for years. I think I've been playing that game longer than I've been married, which is saying something. So I'm happy with it, and I don't miss all the stuff that was in 2 or whatever, so it's not an issue to me. But I've been playing that on Xbox. I do like that, but even just late and other games. So Battlefield I like on PC, and I don't ever want to play that on Xbox because it won't be as good because you can't do all the cool stuff you can do in as the PC game. But I even just pulled out the past 2 days. Blood Bowl, the old Games Workshop game. Blood Bowl, Dungeon Bowl, I think is the last one I got. And I just whipped up a human team. I usually do orcs and goblins, but whipped up a human team, and I've been building that and going through, and I've actually quite enjoyed. I love Blood Bowl. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool. I've never played Blood Bowl.
Yeah, it's a good game. We had leagues back in the board game, the actual original board game. We had leagues of back in when I was growing up back in my old days, but we had to stop the leagues when there was almost a fist fight at the tournament championship one night. It's a game that can get heated, but yes, believe it or not, there was almost a fist fight over the finals, and that basically put an end to our Blood Bowl, games at our local board game store.
I think we were the semifinals, and I was beating this dwarf team. I was playing orcs and goblins, and I was playing dwarfs. I was beating an orc and goblin team really bad, and I was late to see Gwar, the heavy metal band, live.
God forbid, missed that.
And I'd always heard of Gwar shows, and it was a band who, just to be very quick, they were a bunch of theater technicians, like special effects and stuff for theater, who made a heavy metal band that was all about crappy, catchy songs that they could dismember people and squirt blood at the audience, and you never wore anything that you would want to ever wear again. And you had fake blood and other stuff like under your fingernails for a week. And it was, they had songs like Vlad the Impaler, Vlad the Impaler, Vlad could have been a whaler, but it's just they were stupid, and I was late, and I didn't do things like stand up my people that were knocked down because I was like, I just need to, and I kept like rolling crappy for like pick up the ball. All you do is pick up the ball and run, like I won the game, and I couldn't do it. And I didn't stand up my guys because I was in a hurry, and I rolled shitty for those crucial rolls with the re-rolls and everything, and I ended up losing the game, and so that was very pissy. But I'd rather see Guar than have won that.
Oh, Guar. Alrighty then.
Exactly. All right. So, and besides that, so I've been playing Blood Bowl,
cool,
and that's pretty cool. Just lately, very much lately, campaign-wise. All right, so I think that's video games.
Nice.
We only spent.
We just scratched the surface.
Yeah, I mean, we could go back into one of those.
We're gonna need another podcast, I think, for a couple of us.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's a wrap right there, guys. It's
almost an hour. Yeah. Tune in next week for J-Bot's video game podcast. If you guys are ever out, that might be what this turns into. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like Variety Hour with J-Bot.
Yeah. So all right, I do apologize for all that for people who don't care about video games. So there was a news article on FFG about X-Wing for beginners, and it was all about, hey, buy a couple sets, play the game, get into it. It's awesome. T-65s are great. TIE fighters are great, and there was a thread about the article, and I actually stayed away from FFG forums for like one day, and that was the day it released. And there was a couple of people like Cuban Boy and a few people who were just like, oh, the internet sucks. Why are people so negative? And I was a little leery about actually reading this thread. And I started to read it, and there were a few people who were like, this sucks. Why do people casual X-Wing? Their advice is horrible. And then there were a whole bunch of people that just really kind of turned it around and were like, hey, I've got 5 posts, but, this article describes me and how I play. And I know there's a lot of people out there who play casual that don't go to tournaments and don't go to regular game nights, but they bought a bunch of crap and they play with their 6 friends. And I don't know. It started a whole conversation that I know Phil got into, that he started asking, because there was a lot of people there were some very vocal people involved, about how they were not happy or didn't like certain things or whatnot. And Phil kind of started the question, well, what makes Blood Bowl fun, or Blood Bowl? What makes X-Wing fun?
Freudian slip.
Yes. So what is it about X-Wing that actually is enjoyable?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Obviously, because I asked it.
Absolutely.
It kind of goes back to why we're playing this game in the first place. I think it's pretty clear that the Star Wars skin on the X-Wing game is how the game hooks you in the first place. That's what draws people to the game, but what keeps people
Star Wars
continually engaged in the game, that's really what I'm asking. Why is it fun to keep playing Star Wars X-Wing?
Yeah. So why did WizKid's Star Trek game Attack Wing fail when X-Wing has grown?
Has it failed?
Well, the only people I've heard about the only reports I've heard about the game is people who bought it, got into it, and then certain things were totally overpowered and balanced, and the game sucked. I've never heard anyone give a glowing report of Attack Wing ever. And they just say, well, WizKids. And then X-Wing has surpassed Warhammer 40K as the most popular and miniature game worldwide ever. So
Wow, is that true? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but that was coming. I mean, 40K is on the downside. I love 40K, the old stuff, but it's been on the downhill slide for a while. I'm not surprised. But
that's why they're starting to open up their IP more, and they're trying to get into more of the Black Library and video games. I think they realize that the board game is. But anyway, that we're not talking.
I could start a whole other podcast.
A whole nother podcast.
Maybe that's the new name of the podcast. A whole nother podcast.
There you go. Genius.
So, what sort of responses did you get? You posted this on their forums. Did you get any good, interesting responses you weren't expecting, or that sort of thing?
Let's see.
Not that many, actually. Not that many people actually responded to the question directly, because there was a bit of back and forth between a couple of the diehard tournament people.
Yeah, a lot of the back and forth here is really based on whether tournament play is fun, or why what people starting the game should expect, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like someone saying, I always see that people who lose the game complain about how the game is, and it's all about winning, and winning is what makes it fun. I'm like, you know what? It's not really always the case, and that may be the quick, short answer what you see from a few people that hate a certain aspects of the game. I hate fat turrets, wah. But, I've actually won the game at regionals, but if I'm playing the same 3 lists all day long, I get a little bored with it. I practice for 2 months, for regionals, and I've run my list through all the meta games and a million times, and I go to the regionals and I actually, hey, look, there's a Brobots list, and oh wow, I know how to beat it. Boom, I beat it. Next round, hey, look, there's an identical Brobots list, an absolutely identical list, and I know how to beat it. And look, I beat it again. Okay, so I'm spending how much money coming to these regionals, and I'm, going in debt with my wife for favors, and I'm missing my family, and etc. And is this really fun? I don't know. So I've won games and not quite enjoyed myself. So
yeah, I think that part of that has to do with one of my points that I was trying to make on that thread. So I think that one of the reasons that X-Wing is fun is that you make your list, right? You have a high degree of customization, and in the end, sense of ownership over a list that you write, or a squad that you build. And that gives you a sense of accomplishment when you put that on the table, especially when you do well with it. And I think that sense of ownership is always really important in games. I think that's this is one of the reasons that, for example, Pokemon has endured.
Right.
Or Magic the Gathering, which is even older.
Yeah, although I'm not sure, I can't really speak about Magic the Gathering, but maybe in the deck building gives you a sense of ownership the same way. But in X-Wing, you can have a real sense of that ownership, especially if you're making your own list from scratch, as opposed to something more akin to net listing, like a Palpatine Aces list, or et cetera, et cetera. If you come up with the idea for your list from scratch, I think that you can have that sense of ownership more quickly than you could with a different type of list. I still think it's possible to just completely net list a list, take it right off the internet, not change a thing, and put it on the table, and eventually feel a sense of ownership with that list once you've used it for a while. But I think that you get a sense of ownership right away if you were the one to come up with the concept for that list.
But okay, so the counterpoint that, what about, scenarios and missions where it is closed list, and like there's Kenneth Sunrise is a guy in the UK who has a lot of stuff, and he's been on the forums a lot, and he doesn't do mission creation very well on his own admission, and he likes to read other people's missions and play those missions, and kind of even he likes the idea if someone comes up with a bunch of lists to fight against each other.
Yep. Yeah, he definitely likes preset. I've known him for a while. He's definitely a big fan of preset lists.
Wait, is he in the UK or is he in Florida?
I don't know.
Suddenly getting confused. But I think it might be in Florida. But anyways, there is the idea of taking, and I've played like historical games and such, World War II, where you come up with your own list, but also sometimes, boom, this is the historical list that you've got. This is what they used at that time.
Right,
and
that
you've got to take the tools that you've got and make that work. So, even like non-meta stuff that you've got, a bunch of T65s or whatever it is, and you've got to work with it. And so...
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You can definitely have fun with those in those situations. I don't know that you feel the same sense of ownership that I'm talking about here, but it can definitely be fun to work with a preset list, especially if that list is thematic in some way, makes you feel more connected to the Star Wars universe in a way that you don't normally get with a standard tournament-style game, where you can have Darth Vader and give it a few months and we'll have Darth Vader and Kylo Ren on the same table.
Right.
And have all sorts of non-canonical stuff happening. When that does happen, and we also get this to a certain extent on current tables. You have, I don't know, Biggs Darklighter and Corran Horn flying in the same squadron.
Mm-hmm.
If you know your EU, then you know that is pretty wrong. Or you have, pilots who flew decades apart from each other. Miranda Doney and Biggs or Wedge or Luke. Garvin Drace, people who died before, a pilot who died before the other one may have even been born, flying in the same squad.
Right.
On some level, that's a disconnect from the Star Wars universe, and in a game with a preset list, that's almost never going to happen. So you can have lists that make you feel more like you're in the Star Wars universe, and that's definitely a good thing.
All right, and I do get the idea of creating your own list and the ownership of that and doing well with it.
And frankly, I think it's it's an important part of the game, and one that can be really fun. One of the most interesting things for me to do is sit down and think about what might be a cool list that no one has really come up with before, or tries to do something innovative, or tries to put a new spin on something old. That's a fun part of the game.
Well, okay, and so that kind of gets my goat with certain attitudes that I've seen online that basically, oh well, with all the people who are playing competitive X-Wing in the world, haven't all the things been tried out to really know that the net lists that are out there are really the best. And actually, I'm like, no, I totally do not agree with that philosophy, because I mean, there's so many people, like if you look at, say, Biophysical, who everybody dismissed Defenders and never really tried it much more beyond, like, I don't know, 3 games or even like 10 games. But he played on his own, like he practiced against himself, against medalists, etc. The first actual tournament he could make was a regional, and he made them with the top 4. I can't recall he won it, but I think he came like within top 3. and did well with TIE Defenders before titles came out. They were like, well, he's just some weird fluke, and he's some weird guy, and TIE Defenders still suck, but he's just an aberrant. He's a deviation from the formula. And I think that there's a whole lot of things that if you take and practice the hell out of, that you can actually do well in the metaverse of things. Because, like, if you look even at Paul Heaver, a lot of his lists are not meta, but he's practiced them a lot. And the interviews I've heard from him, he's actually practiced significantly with these lists and gotten so that he knows how to deal with these various meta lists. And I'm under the impression that,
to an extent, Paul Heaver has definitely flown well-established meta lists before, like the build that one of his world championship winning builds was fairly standard Fat Han with 3 Z95s, if I remember correctly.
But then some of his lists have been very not meta. So I think he's won 3 world championships, and and one of those was standard, his first, and then the other 2 were very non-standard. And
I'm not sure if I know the second one was the Fat Han list that he won with. That I don't think you could really say was non-standard. I'm not sure what the metagame was like when he won his first with 3.
I think his Fat Han was different because of just even one crew card was like the R2D2 card was itself, radical, like one card of the whole list, blah blah blah.
It's
but
not a new list. It's
a
meta list.
I don't mean that his whole list was absolutely groundbreaking, but he had aspects that were totally not the net list that worked because he played against the meta. And what I mean overall is the idea that if you come up with a list and you practice it a lot and you kind of tweak it and you really work it, you can actually come up with a unique list that other people do not know how to play against, that you know how to play against theirs.
Yeah,
and
there's definitely that wild card advantage that you can take advantage of. If you come in with a list that no one has ever seen before, and you know how to fly that list, and you know how to exploit that list, and the other guy is flying something that you've seen a million times, you're at a competitive advantage. Even if the raw strength of your list is less than his list. Especially if it's just a hair below the competitive metagame, just far enough down so that no one ever sees it. That could be really nice, so long as no one, as long as you don't get too popular.
Right. Like, I do wonder if I actually lived in freaking the Midwest where all these tournaments take place and etc. And if I was still really into that key competitive scene, like how much maybe TIE bombers people would actually take a little bit more seriously, etc. I don't know. I know it's a bit egotistical, but I practiced the hell out of them, and I got good with them, and
practice matters, and that's really if we're going to talk about Paul Heaver, the reason that Paul Heaver wins is because he invests a ton of time. And he does a lot of research. He does a lot of practice. He thinks about his lists a lot. He just takes things very, very seriously, and he's obviously probably got a ton of natural talent on top of that. I mean, that's why he wins 3, world championships in a row.
Right, and I don't mean that necessarily I am amazing, but if I practice, if I'm decent, if I'm good, which I feel like I'm good at the game, and I practice the living heck out of things, but I'm actually around somewhere that actually matters in the meta overall, because I'm actually can access these things, like worlds and whatnot. Then, I wonder how much it would actually. The opinion would be slightly different, not that I'm going to, single-handedly change it, but just the fact that, someone actually does well or decently or get close to the top 16 or in the top 16 at a major event with, say, 4 TIE bombers or something along those lines.
And there's absolutely those lists out there that can shine in the right hands, and there are people who do this consistently. We always go to Aaron Bonner as an example, because he does it consistently. He takes ships and builds that people have never seen before, and he brings them to the top tables often with not even that much practice with those specific lists, because he just knows the game in general so well, and has such a creative mind and devious mind that he does this sort of thing and excels. And furthermore, the idea that there are lists out there that are undiscovered that can excel is totally correct. If we look at the recent hotness Dengaroo, all the pieces for that list were there from day one in Wave 8.
But they were dismissed by many people.
Many of those components were, pretty much flatly dismissed as unviable and were never seen on pretty much any ship. I can think of Countermeasures, Zuckuss. I don't think you ever saw Zuckuss on it, even though people...
Or even just Dengar Pilot,
Yeah, Dengar Pilot was... Well, there was like that Super Dengar build, which people toy around with, but I don't see much of.
All right, well, I don't want to get too much down the competitive route, which I almost feel we have, but I should probably jump to, like, say, J-Bot. What is it that you like about X-Wing? What brings you joy, just to wake you up?
No, I was listening. I was just,
No, you're listening, but I know...
You lost me on some of the people. I'm like, who are these people again? I guess it's odd for me because I look at it, I think, from a totally different perspective than y'all do.
Which is fine.
I don't know how many people listen to this, or you guys, I'm sure at least some of you have done kind of role playing in the past, like pencil and paper, Dungeons and Dragons, I guess, kind of the go-to catchword.
I have a level 12 wizard with
in those games, like. When I grew up playing them, there were essentially two types of people that ran them. I know I'm on a tangent here. There were the people who, as your GM, were essentially out to combat the players. And then there were people that were out to, in a sense, help the players tell a story. I enjoy X-Wing for that latter half of it. I don't need to win. I love to win, obviously. I don't win very often, obviously. But I want there to at least be a story told in the match. That's not just, he played the same list he always plays, and he face rolled me. Oh, great, that was wonderful. And it was, I've played, guys at our local store, and they run you off the table in 15 minutes because I'm not playing a list trying to be, ultra competitive with whatever their tournament level team is. I'm trying to play something I have fun with, something with ships I've never used before, something with cards that people, don't even have fingerprints on them because no one's ever bothered to take them out of the little baggies. Those are things I enjoy because in a sense they tell a story. Like the list I played with against AJ tonight and the list I played against Jim, they're two totally different lists with two totally, in a sense, different stories behind them. With the one I played Jim was, I can't remember what was that card? Tracer? It was a missile that basically gives everybody else target locks. And even Jim's like, why would anybody do that? And then you see the rest of my list, you're like, oh crap, whatever ship gets hit with that is not going to be happy, because that was the whole point of the list, was I wanted to find out how I could use that card and make it at least semi-viable. It didn't get a chance because what we all target locked, long story short, got blown away by other stuff. But it would have been a nice, very Robotech-esque, as all these missiles from everything else just arced away.
Robotech.
Just use all these missiles.
He wasn't trying to missile attack.
Yeah, unfortunately, didn't get a chance to do that. And the one I ran against AJ was, I wanted to take a fire spray, the scum one. I'm not going to have the name, but the guy who can do the 3 bomb drops. They can drop them. Yeah, that one. I wanted to take that one with Andraste, so he could have
which is his actual title,
and basically load that thing up and see what I could do. Didn't work very well because I can never fly. As much as I love the fire spray, can never fly one without having it basically just blown to pieces as the giant target on the map. But that was kind of the goal there, was just, piecing things together and, in a sense, seeing what I can do on my own. The list ownership that Phil mentioned earlier. And, okay, yeah, my lists are horrible compared to the meta because I don't think that way. I think in kind of stories. I think of this character really would be kind of interesting as a lone wolf type of character with, crack shot and, essentially a single shot. Like, I can nuke a ship with this one guy if I do it right. I'm not going to do it right because my opponent's well trained. He's played a lot. He's going to see what this is and counteract it really quick. But in my head, I'm like, oh, this is a really cool idea and a theme for this build. My themes aren't, I've got to win this game. My themes are, what can I throw together as a mash of interesting, bits and pieces on ships and stuff, and what can I surprise them with? What can I come out of the box with? Like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that weird kind of combo to actually work, even though it doesn't work for a win. But it tells a story. It's not just, oh, I've got this list that everybody's kind of playing with a card here, a card there, a little bit different, and just, to me, that's not fun. To me, the fun part isn't essentially copying everybody else. It's creating something of your own, having a reason for having created it. That's not just, I must win. That's,
a story
like a
reason.
Right. It's like, I really want to try this combination. I don't know how it fits into the bigger scheme of 100 points, but this one ship, this is what I've always wanted to try on this one ship. Now, how can I put some other crap around it to get me to 100 points so I can play? Is
so
kind of the way I look at it.
Like concept lists of just kind of things. Like I've done lists just to make expose work. I've built a whole list just to kind of use expose on like one guy.
And that was the idea with that tracer, whatever that's called, that tracer missile. Was I was just scrolling through the missiles. Like, I wonder, like, which of these I've never really used. I'm like, ooh, I've never used this. What does it do? And I stuck it on Blount, however you say that guy's name, the headhunter. And I was like, well, it's a given.
Dog say it, Blount.
Yeah, it's a given. Always going to affect. I don't even really need to roll the dice with this missile, and it's going to have the effect that I want. Now, what can I do to kind of back that up, make that actually worthwhile? And that was the whole point of the list, not to, shock Jim with just amazing, Robotech display, but just to kind of, have an interesting card, try and make it work, and then see what I can do with it. And who knows, maybe if I stuck with that list, I'd be really, really good with it after a month or two of playing everybody with it. I mean, there's no telling, really.
Well, you see, that kind of gets into something that people were responding on the forums, and people would say, well, with a competitive list, and well, when you've competitive play, and I really take issue. I know, Phil, you kind of said, like, you're not really comfortable with terms about how things really have to describe the way, but, like, whenever I play a game, I'm playing competitively. I want to win, like, even if it's shoots and ladders,
absolutely,
Candyland, like, I'm playing competitively, but it's different. I want to say tournament play, because every game I play is competitive.
Right. Yeah. There's a big problem with the words casual and competitive, because they mean different things to different people. And
casual is not just randomly picking dial choices and, flubbing around the table and just kind of, being a dork to make decisions. It's just not playing tournament level. And tournament level is like a whole nother. The whole point of the game, like, new to X-Wing, buy these things. We're like, oh, that would never be terrible. It's terrible advice to get into some of them because it would never work in a tournament. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, you might call that kind of gaming like try hard. That might be a more flippant.
Fly better is, I think, the expression. Look, just fly better.
Well, I mean, then is casual flying fly worse? I don't.
Right.
Well,
right.
It doesn't sound like fly better. It sounds more like build your list better and then just fly it. Because at that point, it doesn't matter anymore.
And there are people, though, who say, well, look, that's what X-Wing is. That you need to pay attention. You need to learn the lists and the upgrade cards, and you need to learn how to play the game, or you know what? Maybe this game isn't for you.
Yep.
I mean, there is some sentiment out like that out there, but I don't know. That's the predominant sentiment. It's easy to think that the tournament game is the vast majority of the X-Wing being played, just by nature of the tournaments and the way like the form is structured. It's very tournament oriented. There's no
feedback
casual
loop.
Yeah, there's no casual X-Wing events that are huge and get a lot of attention. But we have
that's disappointing, really. I mean, I'm surprised that FFG doesn't push that sort of thing some way, because it's not an exclusive type of event. It's not you had to have gotten into this level at your local level in order to come play our casual game. It's or you have to pay this inordinate amount of money in order to be the top, whatever the first 160 people, 140, whatever the number is, to join. It's just, hey, show up, we're having a great time. Anybody can do that, whether you've played before or not. I'm kind of surprised they don't push more of that. It's just tournament. Oh, here's the tournament package for the spring. Where's the demo pack? Like, where's the pack to try and actually spread the game to more people?
Well, with this news article, they came out with a demo pack.
Yep,
it's a demo. It's a demo rule. It's basically like, here's how to kind of set up a demo. It's not, hey, local dealer person, here is our suggestion. Here's some, neat swag to give away to help people and encourage people to come in and do it. And
yeah, and I do agree that the tournament and the prize support of the tournament is what draws a lot of people. Like, get the acrylics, get the things, and that is the tournament. That is X-Wing. X-Wing is the death match over the same 6 damn rocks over and over again. Like, that is X-Wing.
Yeah, but board game companies have come to this understanding that to keep growing their games, you need to reach that group of people who don't have any interest in these hardcore types of events. And so they essentially encourage, a lot of them monetarily, their own players to push it. So let's say our store that we go to, Jim, if, for example, Fantasy Flight encouraged you, said, hey, look, every time you run an event here to show it to new people, for every 4 hours you do this, we'll give you $50 worth of Fantasy Flight credit to buy more stuff for you. You can buy it whatever you want to. It encourages you to do it at almost no cost to them. But they're not pushing that sort of thing. I guess they're just expecting it to grow as, it's Star Wars, it's going to grow on its own.
Well, but I can also see it being abused, because there are a certain number of people that would abuse things just to get the special crap they can sell on eBay.
Right. But there's
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and so, every company that does this or does that sort of thing has ways of keeping that from happening. It's never just you doing it. It's always kind of approved through the dealers, and that's like, it's a long process, but it can be done, and they don't seem to have much interest in doing it, regardless of what this article says. Even in the very article, it says, and also tournaments. Well, I didn't think that was the point of the article. I thought the whole idea was get people started, get them introduced. Don't scare them away, with the tournament stuff. Get them into the game and let them just kind of enjoy it as it is. And then, if they are so inclined, they'll learn of the tournament scene by themselves. Is kind of the way I look at it.
Right, and I think there's 2 things I kind of wanted to make points on, and the first was the idea of people playing the game and having fun and tournaments, and I think I have really worked to build the local scene in my area, and I have really talked to a lot of people and seen the whole thing grow from what it is. And I've seen people that get into it and then they back out, they backpedal. And sure, it's not the majority, but there's a significant number of people, I think, 25% or so, that kind of fit in this category. And I've talked to them about it. And the idea is that they play different game systems, a lot of different game systems. They don't play just X-Wing. They play a lot of different stuff. And they don't want to keep track of the latest expansion or news article or combo that was done online, and they just kind of like to play X-Wing. Oh, X-Wings versus TIE Fighters. And here we go. Let's play a game. Pew, 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 roll the dice, have fun. And they're competitive. When they play, they want to win. But they don't play the cutthroat tournament version. And they don't know about Combo XYZ that is the latest hotness that totally kicks everyone's butt unless you know what you're doing against it. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have people that want to play X-Wing, and they want to play competitively when they do, but they don't want to freaking make it their hobby, like their entire hobby is X-Wing. They play miniature games. They play a lot of different stuff. And by not, dedicating so much time to X-Wing, they really aren't on that same competitive peak. And it's not to say they're not competitive, but because they want to win when they play a game, but they just don't want to put as much effort. And I've had people say, well, maybe X-Wing is not the game for you, to these people. It's like, really? Come on. Like, is the game really so closed that you have to be so freaking meta-conscious, or else you just shouldn't even play the game? And my answer to that is no, because of these people, when they play non-tournament people, they have an awesome time. They have a great time. They play tournament people, they have a sucky time.
Yeah, I mean, the article does encourage new players to try playing at tournaments, and that was one of the more controversial parts of the article.
Yeah, like, oh, you're totally telling them it's fine and they're going to get slaughtered. And you preface it by saying you'll have a good time as long as you expect to lose every game, blah, blah, blah.
Right, I mean...
Yeah, that's basically the way I read it is, tell your opponent that you're brand new to the game so they'll take it slow on you. Like,
well, I mean,
wow,
it
seems,
is a good idea to...
No, it's a good idea, but, like, they shouldn't even be throwing you into that. It should... I don't know.
It depends a lot on the kind of player you are, right? If you're trying to get into the tournament, if you're trying to get into that competitive tournament scene, that might be a really good way to start out, because you start learning right away how the game is played at that level, and if you just have a positive attitude about it and don't care that you lose 9 out of 10 of your first games, and you view the whole thing as a learning process, that's probably the fastest way to learn to play competitively, is to throw yourself right into the meat grinder.
Right.
And as long as you don't get discouraged, then that's fine.
Yeah, but it's pretty easy to get discouraged.
Right. If you're a new player, you go in and you get taken off the table on turn 2 or without ever firing a shot, that could be very discouraging. And that could definitely happen in today's tournament environment.
Sunter Fell killed my entire list.
Right, and you never shot at him. That could happen. You just have to, don't. I'm all for new players playing the game, but don't paint an overly rosy picture. Like another thing the article said was, X-Wing is very balanced. That you could make an argument that it's not very well balanced at this point.
Yeah, pretty good argument, really.
I think if you're looking at tournament level, it's not balanced.
Right. I think if you take 2 new people, teach them how to play the game, and they build lists ignorant of the entire metagame, then it doesn't really matter if they pick an X-Wing or Sunter Fell, because they're not going to know how to use those, and they're going to it's fairly balanced. Mm-hmm. It's balanced within that the range of the balance is fine if you don't know the really good broken combos. If you know the broken combos, then you can really just utterly crush some of the less optimal ships.
One other point I wanted to kind of go into, which kind of went through that thread, is the idea that what is there more of, casual gamers or tournament gamers? Because for people who go to a regular structured, tournament level game night, and they see the scene, and they see the same people, and they see the scene grow, and they go to tournaments. The tournaments every year get bigger and bigger, and they go to these events. They see Tournament X-Wing as like everyone they know plays Tournament X-Wing, and it's getting bigger and better every year. And this is what X-Wing is about. This is X-Wing. If you're not playing this, you're like a bunch of guys at a basement somewhere, and you're like a small fraction of the people who play X-Wing. And you go to the forums, you listen to podcasts, and most of the podcasts are tournament level, and you go to the forums, and the forums certainly have a lot of tournament-heavy people who post a lot, and that's the game to you.
Right.
But
the tournament scene is very organized. The casual scene is very disorganized. So we're definitely overexposed to the tournament players.
But are there really more tournament players than casual? Because
it's a good question.
So
I mean,
the level of the game, like X-Wing has sold a lot of minis and such. And there are a lot of people out there who don't go to the FFG forums, who don't listen to podcasts, who don't do whatever. And they play, with their 6 friends or 4 friends, or a guy and his wife play the Atari Cluster campaign, or whatever it is. Like, there are a lot of people out there who don't interact with the mainstream of what X-Wing is. And I can see that if you're a tournament gamer, it's a bit of a closed feedback loop, that you only really see the people who go to tournaments. And I have seen a significant number of people who have quit the game due to dissatisfaction with basically tournament players. And I've talked to a lot of people, and that's it. That's a lot of where their unhappiness comes from. Is that they don't want to bother competing on that same level, but they get tired of getting their teeth kicked in. Right. And it's not so much that they aren't competitive, or maybe this isn't a game for them, but it's kind of this schism between the two. And I think that there actually are a lot of people out there who play the game that don't interact with the majority of, say, like tournament goers. And that I admit that I don't know the numbers or really can project.
Sure. I mean, this is all supposition, because
right.
There's no
Conjecture.
way to know.
But I know that I've chatted with people and communicated with people on the FFG forums of those who say, like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And this is just these people out there that don't want to play tournament, like a small vocal minority of people that don't want to play this game a certain way, and they just need to get with the program because that's what the rest of the world does, and just shut the hell up and listen to what the tournament players are doing. And I think I've also talked to people like, yeah, me and our small group play, and this is how we do it. We have a great time, and I don't give a damn what these other people think. And I've talked to enough of them.
I wouldn't say that, the amount of people who are putting down casual players like that is really significant. I think it's a vocal few that are.
Well, I don't know. In FFG forums, it might be more than a vocal few on the FFG forums.
Yeah, the forums for every game you have to take with a grain of salt, because they're almost always the kind of, I hate to use the term, 1% of whatever game it is, whether it's an MMO or a tabletop game like this. They tend to be the very hardcore, very dedicated to the game, not necessarily casual or tournament level, just dedicated to the game. They have some stake in the game that your kind of average user, average player doesn't have. Whether the numbers in this are the same as you see in like online games and stuff, I couldn't begin to guess, because I was trying to sit here while y'all were discussing this, thinking at our store tonight. I mean, we had a dozen, maybe 14 people there tonight, trying to think which ones of them I know have never been to a tournament, or at least have not and ever really talked about it. And I couldn't come up with half of them. There's probably 5 or 6 of them who who hadn't been, and that was excluding you and I. We've been to them and we've kind of sworn off of them at this point. But I'd say at least half of them there were still tournament players, had just played in one or were planning on playing one. And I don't know if that's a good sample size for the whole community, but it's about what I've seen whenever I've been to this store or been to other stores around there. It seems about 50-50, which is interesting if it's true.
And we've had a significant influx of new players lately, of people who either live a bit far away or just found out about, that there is actually some organization for X-Wing, or people that have, like, there's a guy at our local store who's been a board gamer for years and years, and he's slowly, after months of coming in and just checking out X-Wing and talking to me and talking to people and just checking it out, for a long time, and that have actually finally gotten into the game and are actually into playing it, and are showing up every week and playing games. And there's a guy who's been, I think, every night for the past month and has not played a game. He's watched people, and he's not was ready to take the step. But like this week, he finally actually played a game with someone. He owns a whole bunch of stuff, but he just didn't feel ready to jump in. And there's actually, I think, there have been a number of significant people at game night that are totally freaking new, and there's a guy who showed up like, yeah, I haven't played since Wave 3. I'm really rusty, but I really like the game, and I was good back in Wave 3, and I don't know. I think that I've been excited to see a lot of new players, and I like to capture their attention into alternative methods, like here's a Terry cluster, or some crazy epic mission, or some crazy stuff, or trench run. And I love to find the new people and to show them the alternative to tournament level.
Well, the thing that's interesting for me is that really the hardcore tournament people, I know we've harped on it a lot. In a way, they should be, I don't want to say thanking us, it's a really strong word, but they should be encouraging this side of it, because so many of the people that saw these games as just Star Wars, just a way to kind of enjoy the movies and the universe that they fell in love with, came into it as casual players. They had no intention of ever becoming a tournament player. They came into it, they fell in love with the ships and the kind of, the way the game plays, and then they got dragged into the tournament side. It wasn't somebody coming off the street saying, oh, there's a tournament scene, I must win, and dove into it that way. They almost always come in as a casual fan that just continues to grow and grow, and they throw themselves into it more and more. It's I think in a way they should be encouraging casual first, and then leave the tournament to the people who actually want to find it, naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it used to be easier to break into the tournament scene. Even then, I'm not sure if it's really that hard to break into the tournament scene now, with a bit of it'll be a hard learning phase to begin with, but I think you can, there's definitely people that break into it after.
Yeah, if you're motivated, you can do it.
Yeah.
We had a discussion tonight just about, because there was a new person there, and about how, oh man, the game used to be, for $100 you could get in and have a nice competitive,
the price tag is
competitive match. It would take us 15-20 minutes to explain it to you, and even this article is like, oh, you can learn. It's got a very short learning curve. No, it doesn't. You can learn the utter basics, but to get in anything beyond just a casual, friendly game, there's a lot to know, or you're going to have your opponent read it.
You need a much larger knowledge base at this point.
Yeah. It has a very short, I guess, has a short learning curve, but it's massively steep once you get past the basics of rolling dice and using templates. It becomes there's a lot to read, a ton of stuff to read. And with the new cards and stuff we've talked about for the last few weeks, it's just going to get worse. I mean, if you don't like that sort of thing. And the conditions that are coming out in the next wave I'm interested to see them, because they could be earth-shattering. They could be game-altering in a lot of ways. Or they could go out with a whimper, and we don't really talk about them as that big of a deal, but they are an added wrinkle, and they're going to be something that's even more difficult to explain to someone that's coming in brand new. And that worries me because it's that new blood that it obviously feeds the casual scene, but the tournament players should be concerned too, because that feeds the tournaments with new blood, new interesting people, ideas, that sort of thing.
Casual side of things will always be an easy entry point.
Correct.
You can really maximize the appeal of the X-Wing intellectual property to draw people in, and that's less true these days with the tournament scene, where you see ships that are, largely taken up by unrecognizable ships. Like if you took Dengar's Punishing One, the Jumpmaster, very few people could pick that ship out and point it out as a Star Wars ship without, just off the bat. You had to have pretty deep knowledge of Star Wars universe to know that that was a Star Wars ship.
It's been asked at our game store, like, what movie is that from before?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I can't answer that. Thank goodness Jim knows where the history of all these things. So,
and I'm not even
dates and the original engineering blueprints and all the other stuff. I'm glad somebody knows, because I'm like, it was somewhere, I assume, because they made a ship out of it. So,
like, I find out stuff from the game, but I don't know all that before it until they make a mini about it. I'm not as keen. But I will say, just to kind of summarize overall, what I find I like, what's fun about the game is a challenge, is a close game that's a challenge where you're playing someone and it's not decided. It kind of goes back and forth until one person wins. And I think that, to me, is kind of the essence of what's good about X-Wing. And I played 2 games tonight that were really different. One of them was a tournament player with his tournament list that he's working on, and I pulled out a modification of my 4 TIE Bombers list that I used to play 4 TIE Bombers back before all these fixes and such, and I'd always kept up to date, etc., but never really tested it out against tournament people because I've been doing stuff for the podcast, and I pulled out 4 TIE Bombers with the latest and greatest of all the stuff. And I played against him, and it was a close game, and it went back and forth. And both, with Ordnance particularly, it looks like your one's winning, and then boom, suddenly one of your ship blows to hell, and the other person's got the edge. And we kind of like, we each had one ship, and we were trying to beat the other person and outmaneuver and all that. And I actually won with the TIE Bombers, and my 4 TIE Bombers, TIE Bombers suck, versus a competitive tournament list that someone was working on. Not a net list, but and I won. And I also then took a list of J-Bout was getting together. He was pulling stuff out. And I was like, yeah, what do I want to do? And I was like, well, I want to play Guri. I have never played Guri really. I want Guri, and I pull up some stuff. I was like, Crax because I like him. Z95 because it's cheap, and I don't know, a TLT Y-Wing, and just kind of threw this list together, and I played against him. And it went back and forth, and it was close. And it was not a meta list, and it was not a, quote, competitive. We played competitively. We wanted to win, and he won in the end. But
yeah, it's okay. You can say it's okay. You can say.
Yeah, J-Bot won, but it went back and forth a bit. It went back and forth, and it was enjoyable. And what we picked for our list, what we chose to do with it, it was a back and forth, and it was a close game. And I think, to me, what X-Wing is, the joy of it is not crushing your opponents and driving your enemies before you like Conan, but it is the back and forth, and it is overcoming a challenge. And even if you lose, sometimes it's just that challenge, and you came close. You had fun, you came close, things didn't quite go. It was enjoyable. And to me, that's what X-Wing is. Close games, not getting your face kicked in or kicking someone else's face in because you practice the hell out of beating this one particular list because that's the list that you're going to face.
Right. I think that seeing new lists is seeing and playing against new lists is really important for keeping things fresh. And I think that people in the tournament scene have the most fun when new waves release or when there's a sudden shift in the meta and everybody's scrambling and writing up fresh lists. I think that's a really enjoyable time for them. And I think that's something that you can expect to see in the casual side of things on a regular basis. Just really one of the best sides of best aspects of casual play is that there's no meta game for casual play.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting way to put it is if that's the kind of magic moment for the tournament scene is that, I can go back to my mad scientist lab and develop something that's going to be the big tournament winner. Well, that's what the casual guys do every day.
That's where we live.
Yeah, that we live in that mad scientist lab, or at least some of us do. And that's what we enjoy. Like, who cares if it blows up in our face? It was fun to spend the time making it. And I feel like that's where the difference is not so much the joy of building the list. I do think that the tournament players love that. I think their joy, or the most joy they get, is, did my list conquer everything, or do I need to go back to the lab?
Personal skill and achievement can be very rewarding too, of course.
Yeah. I remember trying to make Gemmer, making expose work, and I put it on Gemmer Sojan. So if you're close to an enemy, you get a free extra green die and expose. You spend the action, you get the red die, but you lose a green die. But I thought it'd work out. And I also threw in Jan Orr's, the Hawk Pilot, where you can boost the, native attack die. And I played this list, and overall it wasn't necessarily very competitive, but I had fun with it. And there was one particular time someone took a TIE Interceptor with a whole upgrade, and I would have totally one-shotted a TIE Interceptor with Gemmer Sojan and Expose, except they had a whole upgrade. And so that was one thing.
Who does that whole upgrade? What's wrong with these people?
And then there was another one. I played against another TIE Interceptor list because that's all Imperials did in those days. And I boosted the main attack of a Y-Wing, and the TIE Interceptor boosted to range 1 to get an unmodified attack on my Y-Wing, and didn't do much damage. Took some shield off, and I had a focus, and I boosted the attack, and I one-shotted a TIE Interceptor with a Y-Wing's main guns. It was it had 4 red dice with a focus, and and it was at that point one of those mad scientist moments. And I remember the damn Y-Wing one-shotting a TIE Interceptor, and with it was one of those awesome moments that I recall.
Cool.
So I like that. So Jake, do you have anything to add to what makes X-Wing fun for you?
Geez, I mean, I think I must have in my sleep programmed J-Bot to just speak for me, because he basically hit upon everything I was going to say, and the rest of you did too.
Great minds, obviously.
Yeah, obviously great minds, and I almost feel like I don't want to just soil it by repeating everything that you guys have said. It's all pretty much the same. I'm in complete agreement.
Cool. All right. So this we've kind of rambled on. Could be the name of this episode, but we have kind of gone on about this, so it is probably close to ending this. Any final thoughts, Phil?
We will have more tangible content in the future. Don't unsubscribe.
Yes.
Wait, this was tangible. We talked about video games and we complained. That's all that we need in this show, right?
Also, look for our new podcast called We All Talk About Video Games.
No. It's a whole nother podcast. You got that completely wrong. Jeez.
All right, everybody. I think we're about done. I think we kind of rambled a bit about a lot of different subjects. So I do appreciate everyone for listening in and all the crew's help on this. But thanks again for listening to the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast. Can I get a
See you guys.
Good night.
All right, bye guys.